Johnny asks, Rob, how would you explain Paul circumcising Timothy? Did he do this to appease the Jews? I think that there could be several different understandings of this. My personal understanding, and I'll kick this over to Rob in just a second, but my personal belief is that he actually puts Timothy through, and this is controversial, but I think he actually puts him through the man-made ritual of conversion, and I think that he does that so that they can go into the synagogue and the Jews won't. I mean, if Paul walks in with a Gentile, he's not getting anywhere. That Gentile is not, I don't think he's able to even talk to the Jews. And so that's why I think that it's possible that Paul may have circumcised Timothy ritually so that he had some clout with the Jews. Do you agree with that, Rob?
Yeah, I think I take a few things into consideration. One is that I first of all, it's a great question because it's super important. Acts 16, because it's right on the heels of Acts 15. As a matter of fact, Acts 16 is in the wake of the Apostolic Council, and they're taking that letter from James and they're distributing it, right? It's in that context that he circumcised Timothy. We have to remember Timothy, we know from his epistles of Timothy that not only his mother, but his grandmother, so as Eunice and Lois, were believers. And they were Jewish, of course, and they taught him from his youth. So he knew the scriptures. Timothy lived in a Jewish community, but he had a stigma on him because his father was Greek, and the community, he was in a suspicious category. And so his whole life growing up, he would have been kind of treated as like, yeah, we're not sure about you. I think that was a real. You
can be in the seat, but you can't come read the Torah up front, or you can't have a bar. I mean, we see this today, right?
And I think that Timothy accepted growing up, whatever community he was in, because remember, they didn't. It wasn't a gospel-based community then. It was, you know. But obviously, Paul affirms the faith of his grandmother and his mother, and that's super important. So Timothy grows up with this stigma, and Paul comes and is like. Paul's like, man, nobody has a heart to father this child, like to take him. And so the circumcision was something, I believe Timothy desired, but he wasn't going to do it himself. And he was he was just like in a predicament, like socially, like, what am I going to do? If I go do it myself, they're going to say, oh, you know, it wasn't official. Paul comes in and like a loving father takes him under his wing and circumcises him. Now you might call it conversion. I think Paul, by circumcising Timothy, just affirms Timothy as a covenant member.
But it was seen as legitimate by the Jews. I think that's the point. In my book, I
think he would have circumcised Timothy anyway.
I think absolutely, but that's what I mean by legitimate. In other words, he does it in a way that the Jews accept it. It wasn't just like, hey, we're going to go in the back room and snip, and now we affirm something that, like, I think that was. And I think it's a good point. And Paul, they would have respected Paul's authority. The Jewish leaders in that town would have gone, oh wow, right. Paul, like he learned from Gamaliel, and like this. Now all of a sudden, Timothy goes from the back corner of the synagogue to, hey, man, you belong up here. Boom. And now they're all like going, wow. And I think it kind of put them in their place a little bit. I mean, I'm reading into it a little bit, but what I'm not going to say, and I've heard this in the church, that this is Paul going against his own beliefs. Right. Like Paul elsewhere tells, how could Paul on the one hand tell people circumcision is nothing and then circumcise Timothy? Like Paul's people use that to like attack Paul. And I'm like, okay, if that's what you want, I think I think that's a misunderstanding of what of what Paul is teaching all around. I mean, agreed. It doesn't. I think that Paul thinks, well, if you go through this ritual of conversion, it means nothing, and if you don't go through that ritual of conversion, it means nothing. It doesn't matter. You're still a covenant member of God. So if I take Timothy through this ritual of conversion, or if I just circumcise him, I'm affirming something that has, and, I got this question just the other day. Someone asked me, we got men in our congregation that are not circumcised. What should we do? And my advice to them is the advice that I give to everyone, which is, as a leader, I think it's good to encourage people to do what the Bible says, obviously, but it's up to them. It's up to them to, and I think that believers will naturally want to come to that at some point, especially those who are coming to an understanding of Torah. But ultimately, you can't force someone to keep kosher. You can't force someone to get snipped. You can't force someone to celebrate Passover. We do these things not because we are forced to. We do these things because we love God and because we want to have a relationship with Christ, and we do have and when I say we want to have a relationship with Christ, that doesn't mean that we don't have one, and if we do these works, we're going to. What I mean by that is we long to come to be close with Christ and do what he has asked us to do.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications, and we'll see you in the next video.